Get her done, son. Get in, get out, get her done. Let's talk about closers and meeting their needs. Mended Light.
Woo!
So we've been discussing 4 personality types: dreamer, healer, closer, thinker, that we lean into heavily in the work that we do because they're so intuitive. And of course, these are all constructs. There's all sorts of personality assessments out there, but we really like this one because it just makes sense and you can attach to it quickly. Today, we're going to be talking about closers, who they are and how to meet their needs and how to not get run over by them.
Yeah, they can be bulldozers. And this is a fun short video that we're doing. If you want to deep dive and you want to do our entire personalities course, check out the membership site.
So let's talk about who closers are and what their strengths are. You're a closer.
I'm a closer. So your closers are your extroverted, task-oriented personality type. It's all about cause and effect, accomplishment, goals, and getting it done. We tend to see this personality type as predominantly a masculine personality type. A lot of times, your really successful businessmen, your athletes have that closer energy.
Yeah, and traditionally we've associated it with men, but the fact is it's just a personality. And in our relationship, you're the closer. Like,
I'm the closer.
Big time closer, get it done. And we love closers because they're reliable. When we talk about a dreamer, which is me, I will get it done as long as I'm having fun. And if I'm not having fun, I'm going to have a million reasons why I couldn't do it. Closers will find a way.
No excuses.
No excuses. They will get it done a lot of times to the point of sacrificing other things that they might do because they made a commitment, their word is their bond, and they will move mountains to accomplish what they set out to do. It's inspiring.
And they need mountains to climb. Like they have this push forward energy. They have this massive energy. They need to accomplish things. It reminds me of our third, very middle child. He gets out of the car at his sister's new gymnastics studio. We've never been there before. There's like almost this sheer cliff behind it. And he's 6 years old and he's like, Mom, can I go climb that mountain? And he's 100% serious. And I'm like, no, you cannot climb the mountain by yourself at 6 years old. And he was like, what?
No rope, no harness. He's just
Yeah.
like, it's a challenge. I'm going to do it.
Right. And so if you have this personality type in your life, you love and appreciate them for their commitment to getting things done, for pushing through, for all those reasons, right?
Yeah.
They can also be bulldozers, and they can bulldoze themselves, let alone the people around them, right?
Part of that is they tend to be highly competitive, and they associate well with people who are highly competitive, and they're not.
And the competition is a game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and they because they get their worth through that competition, and if they lose, they want to lose to someone great, right? It's like that. That's a big thing, and so they're not bulldozers as long as everyone around them can keep up.
Right.
If you can keep up and perform at my level, I'm going to treat you like a peer and equal. The issue is if you're slowing me down, I will just cut you off or push you to the side and move forward and trudge forward.
Because the task is the goal. The
Yes.
relationship isn't the goal, which is a real turnoff for your dreamers and your healers, where the relationship is the goal, or the fun is the goal, or the comfort is the goal.
Right. Which isn't to say that closers don't value relationships.
They do.
It's just to say that they tend to lean into the task only afterwards, looking back and saying, oh, I may have burned some bridges there.
Well, because they value relationships differently.
Yes.
The assumption is, oh, that wouldn't upset or offend me, so therefore it shouldn't upset or offend someone else.
Yes.
Right? Because we all take the arrogant perspective, besides healers, that the way we see the world is the right way to see the world.
Yes.
And the most important thing is to accomplish the goal. And here's how I accomplish the goal. Don't put your feelings in my way.
Yes. Well, and this is a good place to say that with all the
Yeah.
personality types, they will see someone like them just fine.
Yeah.
A healer's not going to think another healer is overly sensitive.
Right.
A dreamer's not going to think another dreamer is too childlike. And a closer's not going to see another closer as a jerk. They're going to say, oh, finally, a straight shooter who tells it like it is. But if you talk as a closer to a healer, the way you would talk to another closer,
Yeah.
you're going to break their little hearts.
Yeah.
I know this personally. Been there, done that. They're very confident, which sometimes reads to others as arrogance, and sometimes
it is.
Sometimes it
because
is.
every personality type is on a spectrum of maturity. And your less mature closers show up as overly confident and arrogant and egotistical.
And you know what drives me nuts, but is also super cool about closers? Sometimes they can be very defensive if you call them out on their crap, but other closers, like this one right here, Alicia has called me out on things and pointed out flaws or things that I was working on or weaknesses, and I'll try, my feelings are hurt, so I'll try and fire back at her like, here's where you're weak or here's where you struggle, and she'd be like, yep.
Yeah, you're like, well, sometimes you're really rude, and sometimes you're harsh, and I'm like, yeah, I am. I'm really sorry about that.
But it doesn't faze you. You're not like, oh, I can't believe you said that. You're just like, yeah, I know. Deal with it, right?
It wasn't quite deal with it.
No, you're not like that, but other people can be. But that's the thing about all the personality types. They can show up in a more mature version or a less mature version, right?
Yeah. And the closers tend to be more of the tough love.
Yes.
The pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality,
Yes.
right? And everybody has their strengths and weaknesses, as you were just saying. And a strength of the closer is the get it done and is their resilience, right? So that's their go-to tool. And if
Yes.
that tool is a hammer, everything starts to look like a nail, right? When we solve our problems in life through pushing through and being resilient and tough love, it's like, well, that's the solution to everything. When in truth, that's not always the solution.
No. But again, in many circumstances, it works really well for them. They're creative at problem solving. They find solutions where nobody else will because they will find a way. One of my favorite film characters that demonstrates what a closer is Denzel Washington in Remember the Titans. Your favorite film,
It's my favorite movie.
and arguably your favorite film character,
True.
because the way he shows love and the way he shows up is like white woman, black man, but in personality, exactly the same. Alicia has said, I cannot count the number of times she has said, I win, that's what I do.
We will be perfect in every aspect of the game. You drop a pass, you run a mile. You miss a blocking assignment, you run a mile. Perfection. Let's go to work.
And you say it jokingly and ironically, but it's true to who you are.
Right.
Winning bragging rights, friendly competitions between friends. If you've ever known somebody who tried to turn everything into a competition,
Chances are they're a closer,
Yeah.
right? As that closer personality works on their emotional maturity or their emotional intelligence, which isn't an age-related thing. Some people do increase their emotional intelligence with age and others do not.
yes.
And they will tend to outgrow that need to fulfill themselves through competition and being the winner.
They're very reliable. At the same time, they're not known for their patience naturally. Again, it's something they can mature into.
Right.
But
They
they're not,
struggle with patience.
they're not naturally patient. And if they don't like, if someone's doing something in a way that isn't working for them and that person is struggling to learn it, a closer's natural tendency is going to be to step in and do it themselves.
Absolutely. They tend to see themselves as the most competent.
Yes.
Sometimes their directness can be perceived as rudeness or coldness, but in actuality, they care very much. They tend to have a different way of showing it.
Yeah.
And often, because they value accomplishment, they also value acts of service. And that's how they show love and consideration for a person.
And they value efficiency, which is
Yeah.
why closers and healers butt heads so much, because a healer is going to say, I need to be heard and validated and understood. And a closer is going to say, here's the problem you're presenting me with. Here's the solution. Let's move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
But they're offering the solution because they care. Oh,
Yeah.
you're hurting. Here's the solution. Did that help? Right?
Yeah. So here was a really valuable lesson I learned, I think, in my late 20s, maybe my early 30s, that you are efficient with tasks and you are effective with people, right? And when we confuse the two and we try to be efficient with people, it doesn't work,
No.
right? And it goes back to speaking those different languages.
Okay, absolutely. Okay, so how do you as a closer learn? Because all the personality types learn differently.
Yeah, they love to get their hands dirty and do it themselves. They're fast-paced, flexible, and they tend to be self-correcting.
Yes. And so sitting through a lecture or sitting through a lengthy series of instructions is not a closer's jam.
When I went back to school to get another degree, and my background's actually in architecture and construction management, and the most challenging courses for me were the human relations courses because it was a management degree, about working with people, understanding people, and I was like, I don't get this. This might as well be Greek.
Yes. Okay.
So I'm here doing this now.
So let me ask you, how do you meet your own needs? And the reason I ask is because if you're watching this and you're a closer, just like if you're watching any of our other personality videos, you can only expect the people in your life to do so much. There's a lot you have to do for yourself, right? That's why we asked this question. So how do
Yeah.
you meet your own needs?
You need to be aware of what your needs are. You need to be aware of how you can meet your own needs, and then communicating to loved ones like, here are what my needs look like, and here's how you can support me.
Yes.
Like, those are all important, but it starts with me. If I'm an adult, it starts with me.
Okay.
And so being a female and a closer and not having a healer or dreamer, secondary to balance that with is really, really challenging. And I will stand by the fact that the hardest thing I've ever done is be a stay-at-home parent. And that is naturally a very challenging and physically and emotionally exhausting job.
Yeah.
But the reality is the nature of that job, I do not get any personal fulfillment out of it.
Yes.
Like, my personality type does not get fulfilled by nurturing and loving and teaching children and taking care of them all day, right?
You value those things, but that's not where you
Right.
get fulfilled.
I don't get fulfilled by it. So when you're spending all day long doing those things, right? And I value accomplishment. So I'm like, no problem. I can do this. I can learn new skills. And I'm just going to organize my day and have my goals. I'm going to check things off the list. That is terribly hard to do with small children that do not know how to follow a schedule. I mean, I don't know if you've ever tried to get multiple infants, toddlers, and small children to, follow a regiment. But it's not happening.
Yeah.
It's not happening, right? And so as a closer, you will see the people that get in your way as obstacles, right?
Yes.
And then you tend to objectify them because you're angry that they're getting in your way.
Yeah.
And as a closer, you tend to tie your self-worth to your accomplishments. So then when people are standing in your way, you feel worthless. You may not be aware that you feel worthless. You feel worthless. And then you look at the people and you say, you are the problem.
And those feelings of worthlessness come out as anger and frustration, often with others, but sometimes it's turned inwards. So how do you meet those needs for yourself?
So the first step is the awareness component,
Yeah.
right? And for me, what that looked like was becoming aware of those dynamics of what my needs were and how it was creating massive challenges in my life. And then I got to decide whether or not I wanted to keep those worth ties to my accomplishments. You might be familiar with the saying, when you can't change the things around you, you're required to change yourself, and that changes everything,
Yes.
right? And so I absolutely could have said, hey, being a stay-at-home parent is not for me. My kids need to be in daycare. I need a profession. Like, my life needs to look different, right?
Yeah.
And ultimately, we have to make all those decisions for ourselves because you are the steward of your own life. But for me, I felt like the best thing was to learn and grow in other ways,
Yeah.
right? So I still needed structure. I still needed accomplishment, but I needed to do it in a realistic way that met my needs while still meeting my family's needs, right? And so that looked like creating space where I could accomplish without the interruption of children,
Yeah.
right? Like, I needed to separate the two, and I needed to change in my perspective what accomplishment looked like. Accomplishment with my children didn't look like doing tasks. There is absolutely a component of, feeding people, so on and so forth, that are task-oriented, but the accomplishment came in showing them love and teaching them and nurturing them,
Yeah.
which did not come naturally.
But it's still accomplishment.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I had to change my perspective around that and then position it in a way that was supportive for me.
Well, and that's kind of, to compare, as a dreamer, I value fun. So I had to put my own stamp on work, right?
Right. To make work more fun.
To make work more fun, and you had to make these things more in line.
Accomplishment,
Yeah, more.
yeah.
And here's the thing that I see with all the personality types: you value what you value, and if you don't make time for what you value or make adjustments so that things line up with what you value, you're going to resent everything else in your life.
Yeah.
I make time now just for music. Not to listen to an audiobook, not to do something productive, just because when I was younger, I liked to rock out to my tunes. And as an adult, I haven't done that as much. And I found myself resenting everything else in my life. And as a dreamer, I'm like, no, I need this. And when I feed that, everything else feels okay. And I imagine for a closer, if you're not accomplishing, if you're not making goals and following through on them, everything else becomes drudgery. Whereas if you are doing those things that you value, everything else becomes, oh, I can handle this. I enjoy this.
Right.
Like, it's okay.
And so if you have a profession, if you have a career, that's super easy because you have all this space to accomplish and people love you for that drive and that accomplishment. If that is not the season in life you're in right now, you need to make space for it.
Yes.
And don't let someone else tell you that's not a closer, that's not important, that's not what you should be doing. I know so many women whose primary role is to be a mother and that is what they want. And they're like, no, I have to have time for my career, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's just a part-time thing right now, or I have to have time for my side hustle. Like that is how they make time for themselves.
Yes, absolutely. So let's talk about if you're with somebody who's a closer, but you're not a closer, how do you meet their needs? And I want to talk about lessons I've learned. First of all, a closer will be direct and blunt. If you're not a closer, it will come across as rude to you. Generally, they're trying to help by being straightforward, right? I can't tell you the number of times I've had to remind myself she's not being hurtful. She's speaking directly because she believes this is what's going to help me, right? And we talk about for a healer, tone is everything. You've done a lot of work to manage your tone with me and with our healer children, but I've also had to do work when your tone hasn't been what I would want to say, you know what? It doesn't mean it's not loving and it doesn't mean it's harmful. It just means this is who she is and this is how she talks about these sorts of things. To meet the needs of a closer, do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah, that's huge.
When you say you're going to do it. In fact, when we talk about Gary Chapman's 5 love languages, we actually added one for closers, which is follow through. You can do words of affirmation, time together, gifts, touch. You know, you can do all the love languages. But if you're not reliable, a closer will not feel loved because they show up in reliability, they show up in integrity, and they need that from their partner. And if you've seen some of our marriage problems videos, you know that that's where she's strong, that's where I've traditionally been weak, and it's caused a lot of pain, right? And so I have had to step into, okay, I have to figure out how to follow through and get stuff done, what I said I'm going to do when I said I'm going to do it. And there's a growth curve there. Just like there's a growth curve for you to be nurturing, like we all grow for one another.
So along with that space for accomplishment for a closer, they also have to feel like they're the authority in their life, right?
Yes.
That's particularly challenging if you have a closer child because that's not the dynamic of childhood.
Watch our true parenting videos, Bryson.
Woo. Yeah, so you have to have the space to be the authority in your life. And if you're not a closer, but you have a closer in your life, and maybe if you're a parent to a closer, like really lean into that. How can I help them create more authority over their life?
And that was something you helped me with in parenting our strong closer son, is we get into power struggles because with our other children, I say, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's the consequences if you do or don't do it. And by and large, they say, okay, and they make a choice one way or the other. But if they don't do it, they accept the consequence.
Yeah.
Bryson will question, why are we doing it this way? What about this? Can we have this be a consequence? Can we have this be a reward? And every step of the way, I feel like he's fighting me. And you help me to see it's because he doesn't like being told what to do and what's going to happen. He wants authority and he wants the ability to help mold it. And you said to me, you are his parent. So you can't just let him run the show, but as much as you can give him to create, he will feel like, okay, I'm an active part in this.
Yeah, and so they need to be the authority in their own life, and they are the personality type that will inevitably have to learn some lessons the hard way, right? So not seeing their choices where they learn things the hard way as a reflection on you or something is wrong with you, especially in that parent-child relationship. Just see, okay, like I've taught you, I've done the best that I can, and you are going to have to learn this the hard way and not saving them from the consequences of those choices.
Other lessons I've learned being married to a closer, set goals together and work on them together. Or if you're not going to be able to keep pace, own it, be honest about it, and just get the hell out of the way. And let them do what they're going to do because that's what feeds them, that's what gives them joy. Tell them you sure got the job done, or I'm sure impressed by you. Allow them to vent and recognize when they're venting. If you're a healer, it's going to sound an awful lot like anger. But the fact is, with closer, usually they get it out of their system, and then they're fine.
Yeah, closers tend to be more volcanic in the way they express emotion. I joke that the go-to emotion for closers is anger, but they get the anger out, which I'm not saying it's justified. Like the anger comes out and then they calm down and they're fine, which is the exact opposite of a healer, right? And if a closer vents on a healer, the healer is going to carry those words and those emotions and that feeling with them. And the closer's going to be like, no, it's fine. Like, I'm fine. Yeah. And so we have a healer daughter and a closer son, and they're just 2 years apart, and they're complete opposites. And the conflict between those two is really something else because of those opposite personality types. And it's an adventure to parent them sometimes, but also if they can learn to interact with that person who is completely opposite from them and set boundaries and express needs in a healthy way,
It's going to be huge.
It's going to be like a superpower for them.
Yes. Don't tell them to calm down, slow down, or accuse them of bossy or controlling behavior. Rather, if you need to, use I statements and say, when you do this, I feel controlled or I feel like you're bossing me. Because generally that's not what they're going for. And they'll be like, oh, I didn't realize I was doing that. But don't accuse them of that.
Because they care very much.
Yes.
And they because they're so self-assured and self-confident, they just assume, well, if you have a problem, you're going to tell me. That they come across so self-assured and self-confident. The healer or their dreamer personality is like, well, I don't know. I guess they know what's going on. And they have the perception of being bulldozed.
Yes.
When the intention generally is not to bulldoze.
But they also tend to recognize and respect strength met with strength. So that doesn't mean meeting their fiery outbursts with their own. It does mean don't be afraid to stand up to them and to say, hey, you're running over me, or this is a need that I have, because otherwise they'll just walk on you if you let them. You got to stand up for yourself and stand up for your boundaries. If they feel blocked in achieving their goals, they're going to really struggle with that. So again, get out of their way or keep pace. Here's the thing, folks. All personality types have strengths and weaknesses. Everybody needs to be loved, everybody needs to feel safe, and we all want to feel respected. So if you're a closer and you identify with this video, what did you learn? If you're living with a closer, what did you get from this that helps explain what's going on with you? Sound off in the comments below.
And if you have a healer-closer dynamic in your life, how has this video and our healer video helped you? Has it helped?
Yep.
Like, I hope so.
Check out our marriage problems video. Are we too different? We're nothing alike. It's something like that. It's going to come up at the end of this video. And if you need help with these dynamics, you can take our personalities course on our membership site. Until next time, folks, keep shining. We need your light.